Hey guys, welcome back to the MedBoys Podcast. This is episode 5, and the topic for today is artificial intelligence, or AI, as everyone knows it these days. We have with us today Samir Khan, who's a very experienced AI enthusiast, and he's worked at numerous companies, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm Samir. I'm a second year computer science student at University of Toronto. I've been doing things in artificial intelligence and more specifically machine learning for about the past 3 years. And I'm just an avid tech enthusiast. I love everything tech. And I also have kind of a passion for biology and tech.
So, Samir, what motivated you to actually get into AI?
So I was actually part of this program that was designated for, like high school students. And their goal was to introduce students who are kind of passionate about technologies to more of the exponential technologies that we're ready to see in the next 5 to 10 years. Things like artificial intelligence, gene editing, blockchain, that kind of realm of technology. And it was based on, introducing students who are ready to take a shot at doing something big in the future and, kind of look into the technologies that'll actually have an impact in the world in the future. So me kind of having that, you know, like for programming and like for, these new technologies, I really liked artificial intelligence because it kind of was something that I looked at, I kind of just heard, didn't really know what it was until I kind of experienced, you know, computers being able to learn things and do better than humans. And I thought that was just such an incredible thing where computers could do things just as good or if not better than humans. And I thought that was just something I would want to work on. And, it would have an impact on a lot of fields.
Samir, besides the high school club that you talked about, where did you actually learn about AI? Now, I know that you heard about stuff, but how did you research it more and get into depth? Because I know they don't give you much information in high school or in university
Yeah.
if you don't specialize
So
in it.
honestly, I just knew AI was a thing. And as I kind of, got into looking into what it actually is, a good way of doing it was kind of just, we have Google nowadays, and that is honestly like the best resource. And we're growing up in a time where, you can just search up anything you want and you just get that information. So um, I would look into different things. You can go start by looking at Wikipedia, looking down at things. What is there to learn? And once you know what there is to learn, you actually want to start looking for things that you don't know, and you try to learn the things that you don't know, right? If you don't know about something, how are you going to learn it? So you kind of keep going down that path, and then going down these amazing like websites like Udemy, Coursera. They have some really solid courses where you can learn a lot of things. There's a lot of things in bioinformatics. There's a lot of courses from universities in medical fields, technology fields, and there's just a lot of resources online that you can just find.
Yeah, so that was actually my next question, which was what kind of resources would you provide to the youth? So, so I guess my question is, do you actually recommend it to the youth, the people in high school, which is when you started, just learning about AI?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to learn about these things because right now I feel like the high school education system is slowly getting outdated. The way the system actually works is kind of set in stone, and it's really hard for any curriculum changes. I remember talking to somebody about how they're planning on adding these kind of new tech things into the curriculum, and they actually have it in their plan right now. But the actual plan for putting it in the education system is further than 10 years. So they're just really slow with that. And getting ahead of the curve and learning about things like AI is just super important because by the time you actually get into the field, maybe the next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be huge. It already is huge, but there's just going to be so many more opportunities that you're going to start to see in machine learning and AI. So just being in high school, you really need to get ahead of the curve.
So, Samir, everything you said really resonated with me, but what are some of the specific projects that you worked on with the AI?
So I did quite a fair share of things in different, you know, areas. So AI is just kind of like the branch of, something artificial having intelligence, right? That's in the name. But there's separate fields in it. So there's things like machine learning, which is, revolving around machines being able to learn. What they do is they analyze data, they kind of extract, you know, certain pieces of information and can make predictions based on that data. And machine learning is probably one of the biggest subsets of AI. And that was kind of where my focus was. So I did things like, um, from the simplest things of, just taking an Excel sheet and trying to look at data from customers from banks and trying to predict whether they were going to leave the bank within the next 6 months or not. And you could actually figure out that there's actually ways to predict it, although the human will not be able to see it, but the actual machine learning model that you create would be easily able to figure out whether somebody's probably going to leave within the next few years. I also did things. So I worked at a startup. It was a pharmaceutical AI startup, and I worked on drug discovery. So we took a breast cancer cell line and we took a bunch of data from it, and we somehow managed to use this machine learning model called the generative adversarial network, which is basically very simplified. It's able to create data from scratch without like having too much information of what real data looks like. It could just create new data. So with that technology, we used this model to create things that actually looked like actual drugs that would treat breast cancer, and through that we can generate a variety of drugs that actually have the potential of doing so.
So that definitely sounds very, very difficult to accomplish. And I know that a lot of medical students and pre-med students are not really well versed in the areas of biotechnology and artificial intelligence. So to these students, how would you break down AI in layman's terms? And also, what would you recommend pre-med students and medical students to do with newfound skills in artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so when we look at artificial intelligence, like I said earlier, it's more just how do we give something the ability to do something better than humans, and that's not human, so it's artificial. And what it is in layman's terms is just that, but then there's just more added things when you go further down, right? So you have things like machine learning, and a lot of artificial intelligence just comes from analyzing real data. And you hear these terms like big data a lot, and it's become like kind of a buzzword, but it is what it is, right? So that's what artificial intelligence is kind of based off of. You have a lot of data, and when you have these like computers that are able to do a lot of statistical inference and are just have that mathematical like power and ability, what you get in return is something that can replicate human behavior or like skill sets. And using data, it can do things and make educated guesses or um, gather rather like scarce information that we don't actually have. And that's kind of the core behind it. It's using data and using that information, and that's how kind of behavior is mimicked. You can also see, like, if you've heard of the video game Dota, the company OpenAI that's founded by Elon Musk, what they did is they made bots in the game Dota that could actually beat professional teams. And in just a matter of 6 months, you got a bot that was more skilled than a human who spent 10 years on that game. And you can just see, like, if we can do things like that at a crazy level, we're going to be able to do some insane things in the future. And my advice to pre-med students is, like I said, if AI is at that level to start mimicking humans or skill sets and just become better, I think there's a huge worry around, will AI take our jobs? But in reality, that's not necessarily the case in the med field. Although a lot of things will be looking different. There's going to be a lot of change in the field. I think in reality, what it's going to be is that it's going to be something that becomes part of your career rather than it actually taking over. There's going to be a lot of improvements, and there's going to be like maybe certain things of, tumor classification or things like that. That kind of stuff can be done better by AI. And that's where we see opportunity rather than, oh, it's going to do everything for you. Because right now we're in a state where it's weak AI. We kind of only can make AI that can do one certain thing really well, but we can't make it do everything. And you're just going to start seeing more technology in places that you normally wouldn't have. And I think just being aware of what you're seeing in your field, of what sort of technologies are going to be there, and just being ready for that, and maybe even, learning about it yourself, kind of getting experience within programming, is just going to be something that's going to be better for you in the future.
Samir, do you think this information will be integrated into high schools or even middle schools or university more often now that people are seeing the potential in AI?
So I'm actually pretty sure that high school is just not going to be able to keep up with, that curriculum. It's going to stay behind. And I think ever since, like, the 1900s, we've seen technological changes faster than we've ever seen in the past 200 years. In the past 30 years, we've done way more. You can see how we went from just like these big clunky flip phones to just these amazing smartphones in just a matter of 8 to 10 years. And technology is just growing faster and faster. Who knows? We might be seeing a lot more of this technology within 5 years rather than 15 years or 40 years, as people predict. I think just kind of doing things on your own right now is kind of a lot of where it is at. High school might implement systems that could do that, but I don't think right now the curriculum is looking to change.
You mentioned a lot of things about how AI won't take our jobs yet, and I'm very happy about that. But what do you think AI can specifically do to advance medicine?
So there's actually a lot of things, and I'll quote something that Steve Jobs said. So when he was in the 20th century, his thought process was that something that would mix technology and creativity would become number one in the world. And as you see, Apple is the number one company in the world. He also said that in the 21st century, it's probably going to be something along the lines of biology and technology. So now we have a lot of things that we can talk about here, and I'll try to keep it short. But we have a lot of things revolving around, drug discovery, something that is a huge process, takes up to 15 years, could be, shortened into a matter of just a few years. We also have, remote surgery, which is something that's starting to boom. There's also human longevity, which is a really interesting field. How can we increase the health span and lifespan of humans? And there's a lot of research that's going on just on the biology sector, but there's a lot of things that technology can do to work in that realm. So you can start seeing these kinds of things. AI has probably the biggest impact, I would say. It's just because there's a lot of tasks that revolve around pattern recognition or sort of mundane tasks that a machine will probably be able to do better than humans.
Honestly, I'm flabbergasted by the fact that AI could potentially do something as crazy as human longevity. But honestly, to every like revolutionary or crazy idea, there has to be some sort of ethical concern or moral concern surrounding that topic. So, Samir, would you like to give us some ethical concerns that would be surrounding the integration of AI into medicine or any field related to medicine?
So medicine is a very touchy topic, and it all comes down to, why would I trust a machine to do something that I can trust a human to do, right? Like, isn't the machine going to be doing something worse? What if it messes up? What if there's an electrical issue or something like that? You always hear these concerns, and it all boils down to um, where humans actually just, their thought process. Humans like to think a little negatively, and I mean, those concerns do exist. Like, there is potential of things going the wrong way. But if you actually look at statistics, there's a more likelihood of humans actually messing up. When there was a brain tumor classification, or I don't remember the exact study, but there was some sort of classification of either cancer or some disease. Doctors were able to identify it around 83% of the time, where the machine learning system that was trained to predict it was actually getting it right almost 98 to 99% of the time. So just that kind of statistic already proves to you that, there are a lot of places where technology actually exceeds humans. And that whole thing about, can AI actually perform like surgery on humans, or can it predict things or perform better than humans? It really comes down to just time. People will gradually understand that there's a lot of places where technology will be able to do better. But yes, that ethical concern does exist. Can we trust it? And all I have to say to that is, when you have the statistics lined up that, human error is worse than what technological error is at, there's, something that doesn't make sense here, doesn't line up. And I also think that things like in self-driving cars, well, human error is huge in, causing collisions in traffic and whatnot. Self-driving cars will be able to solve that issue pretty easily, I think. Having a system of connected cars that will be able to kind of have this communication and just work together, if there's no human error, more likely than not to have something that performs better, and there shouldn't really be any concern.
It's funny that you mentioned the fact that the statistics don't lie, and that's quite true. But we have quite large AI figures, such as Elon Musk, who preached the fact that AI might turn against us one day. So, what do you think about what Elon Musk is saying? What's the reason behind his opinion on this controversial topic?
So I've actually read into what, he thinks about it. And obviously, I'm not in a position to say that he's wrong or, he's right. Um, I'm just going to say it. He knows a lot more. He works with experts every day. I think the concern just comes from the fact that if you look at how humans have been living, you can see that just from how we conduct our lives from a day-to-day basis, we're unintentionally doing things to the environment. We're killing animals, we're endangering animals just unintentionally. Like when we are expanding our, neighborhoods and cities, we're taking away from the natural environment. And as a result of that, a byproduct of that is, you know, animal lives are being endangered, or things to the environment, or pollution. And just the way humans live is just something that naturally will cause destruction to other species. And that just comes from our ability to do things better than animals. We have intelligence, we've built buildings, we've done incredible things. Now, if you have some sort of species or tech that can perform better than humans, is more intelligent than humans, that kind of puts that into the limelight. It's like, are we going to be like the endangered animals that, and AI going to be the humans of the next generation? And that's something that is concerning.
Yeah, and staying especially with that and with Elon Musk, a lot of the times he said that the only way we can beat AI is to merge with AI. And that's what he's doing with Neuralink, with putting in the implants into your skull. So do you think in the next, how far do you think it is before we become part cyborg, part human?
Yeah, so I think the technology is obviously really, really hard to achieve. We're not in that position to have that strong AI, as I mentioned, have AI that's kind of multi-talented. And then we also have the challenge of, the actual technology behind Neuralink. And then on top of that, I think the system of people kind of agreeing to, have that in their heads and being able to do that stuff. There's a lot of ethical concerns and issues that arise. And I think people say it could be within the next century, and I think that is very plausible. You know, AI being like really strong in the next 40 years and Neuralink in the next 40 years having that tech. I think it's going to be something that is within the next 70 to 100 years, you might actually be communicating through, you know, technology within your brain.
And with that interesting bit of information, we will be coming to a close of the MedBoys Podcast episode 5. Thank you so much, Samir, for coming on and sharing your views on the world of artificial intelligence. I know that I myself included, along with Nimit and Naman, will definitely be using this information to potentially share and hopefully do something with it. So thank you so much, and we hope that you all have a great day. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.